So, according to a recent survey, most of the organizations here today will not be GDPR compliant. So when I say GDPR to you, you may well think of Google's €50 million fine just recently. You may also think of investment or revenue projects that are stalled or blocked until you have a good GDPR answer. And you might be thinking about what that GDPR answer is at your organization. So we'll just have a look at that survey, and then we'll look at how Keepabl can help you have a really good GDPR answer and unlock that revenue and investment. So that survey was by PwC of financial services in Luxembourg. And only half, we're 7 months on from GDPR, only half self-assessed as compliant with the major obligations in GDPR. But then they contradicted themselves with their later answers. So over 3/4 hadn't completed their retention projects, and that is always one of the most difficult parts of the project. But 2/3 either hadn't reviewed the security around personal data or had done, and it needed upgrading, which is interesting considering the 16 million fine the FCA levied on Tesco Bank last year for breach of Principle 2 for protecting their personal data from cyber attack. And most had not carried out the necessary data protection impact assessments. This is the core risk assessment in GDPR, and the risk there is about the risk to the individuals about whose data you're processing. So how are these organizations going to fare on their internal audits? 61% of those organizations have brought GDPR into their internal audits. And more importantly, how are they going to fare on those external audits for investment or revenue opportunities? So we'll show you how Keepabl can help here. Now, we're going to start off with the #1 challenge for GDPR felt by financial institutions in Luxembourg in this survey, which was just simply completing the inventory of personal data in the organization. Until you've done that, you can't do anything else. The second problem, biggest challenge that was faced, was the lack of support, staff availability, and that ties in with other surveys about staff and technical availability. And the third big challenge that was faced was just GDPR's complexity. So when we created Keepabl, we wanted to make sure that it was simple. It had to decomplexify GDPR. And I was General Counsel of VC-backed companies for 13 odd years before starting Keepabl, so I've been a customer. I know what's needed to get the job done on GDPR, and that's where we focus. So the activities here, if Andrea can create a new activity, we're going to start our inventory of personal data in Fund Capital LLP. And what you'll see is this is a simple web form. We'll start with finance payroll. You could do HR recruiting, investor relations marketing, IT access to services, etc. We'll give this to finance. You can see it's very point and click. We'll say no to a data protection impact assessment. We're with the 62% who haven't done it. We'll say no to another form of assessment, so we still get asked what's our risk rating. For the purposes today, we'll say very high. Now, Andrea's going to continue through, and you'll see it's a web form that goes through the data lifecycle for this particular processing. We're a controller, we're doing our own payroll. The data subjects are going to be employees, and we're going to say that the personal data is just financial data. But you can see it's very point and click. There's some text fields to fill in as well, but it's a very easy way to be entering the data. Now, as Andrea will now go through to the recipients part, you'll see it does track if you're in compliance. It's got all the questions you would expect to see to be able to capture what you need to capture about GDPR. If you're not in compliance, hopefully you'll see it's a very usable, intuitive interface. So if we keep on going down to recipients, we're going to go straight to processors. We'll say we use Google for storage. And now we're going to put in some data on Google. You can choose the countries to which the data is transferred or accessed from. Very important, we use that to produce the transfer module for you. And also, we've got some questions here about the Google contract. Is it GDPR compliant? Have we done due diligence? Obviously, with Google, it's a pretty good situation to be in. So we'll just pause for the moment there. What we've done quite quickly, in less than a minute, is put quite a lot of information into the system. So if we now go to the Article 30 records, Andrea, if you could go to the Article 30 records, we produced these for you as controller and as processor. Article 30 is the part of GDPR that says you need to keep this summary of your processing up to date at all times. So it's one of the first things people ask you about. You can see our finance payroll process in there. If you could go for processors, please, Andrea. You can see we've got Google there. If you could go, please, for the risk map. And what we're going to do, we're going to say, well, we can't have very high. We haven't done a DPIA there, so we'll click on it. We'll say we have done a DPIA. We'll upload it, and then we'll just say it's a medium risk. We'll bring it down to medium. We'll nip back to the risk map, and you'll see it's shifted to medium. Now, This was just an empty account. We'll move to one with more in there. So if we can go to the example log, please. Thank you very much. And we'll go to the risk map there. And you can see you can have the risk map really comes alive when you've got all of your activities in there. You can have it as a bar chart. You can have it as a pie chart. You can interact with it. So you can click on a segment. Say you click on the red segment, it will filter. You can reset the filter. You can download all of these reports, the Article 30s and the risk map, etc., as a CSV. If we look at the processes module, we've got all of the processes in there. And if we go to the Article 30s, you'll see in the Keepabl reports there, we've got a very complete set of Article 30s. As you go through, we also have a file library you can be putting these into. We want to just show you very quickly the benchmark. So it's a really good way to see how you're doing on your GDPR project and showing this to other people. The benchmark is 80+ questions that track the GDPR and the UK PECA e-marketing rules. So it's questions on repurposing, etc. You'll see as we come down, they're mostly yes, no, partial questions. There's children is one where we have a gating question, so we can toggle that. If we, for example, we say no, we don't process children's data, we won't see those other questions. So it's responsive as you go through the whole system. So if we go to your scores now, actually this example org is not too bad. It's at 69%. People love this. It's very visual for reporting to the board or to the execco. And also, if you scroll down, we'll now see we've broken that down into 17 sub-areas. So that's the first 7 areas. We'll go down to the 17 sub-areas. Privacy team really like this. If we maybe go for one that's not doing so well, if we go to Eurohedge, please, as a different organization. This is where you can switch between organizations in your group. 37%. So we'll look at the scores, and we go down to that breakdown of 17, and you'll see it's really valuable for the privacy team to know where do they focus their remediation action first. If you've got 37, you don't want to go back to the board until you've got a 4 in front, and preferably 45, something like that. And they can use this to really focus their efforts. We also have a fantastic breach module. You need to record breaches, one of the ongoing GDPR requirements. That email alerts are sent out from here. There's a lot more within this. As hopefully you've seen, it's very straightforward and simple. Do come and talk to us later on. Thank you very much indeed for your time.